make a tier list on just the items and where they actually are and why they are there, etc. Now, some of the component stuff, which I would basically call the item itself, is actually not here, but like I will say that when I do Banshee's Veil, I will. If Verdant Barrier was here, I would have it actually on this list, but it's just not here. Okay, so we're just gonna get started. We're gonna end up doing the Bloom, and the Bloom is it's really good because in the video, obviously, there's a lot of talk about this and Void Staff. And I think in most cases, Cryp Bloom is going to just be the better item in most cases. And there is going to be some thin differences between the two. And it does create for some skill expression between the Void Staff and obviously Cryp Bloom. But the item is very, very, very good. Very good in controlled environments, very good in chaotic environments, where the passive is just way too nice, and it's just so close to Void Staff, and the difference is so thin that the upside on, like, its passive when you activate it and all this other stuff, it's just very, very, very good. Just all around an amazing, beautiful item. Okay, let's get... Actually, let me just do these really quick. Obviously, Darksteel does not really need any explanation. It's just a super nutsoid starter item. Really, 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 really good. Inherently, just really, really a nice item, right? Doran's ring is also, Doran's ring is also quite nice, but the reason that I'm going to have Doran's ring actually be lower is because Sapphire Star is just still really good on a lot of champions. And so because Sapphire Star is actually still better in, or it's like, better in slot than D-Ring, I'm going to have D-Ring actually be A, just because it's not like an S tier or like a Z tier thing. And speaking of which, I actually did completely forget that there is a Z tier, right? And that is something that I do not have. Okay. All right, nice. So, okay, Z tier, I guess there's not actually another color here that we can have be this, which is a little unfortunate. Unless I do, yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just have Z be kind of grayish. Okay. So yeah, I don't think that we're gonna end up using it, but yeah, okay. So Sapphire obviously is, a thing, and so I can't actually reasonably have D-Ring be higher than this. Okay. Tier, also another really, really, really good item for obvious reasons. I don't think that there needs to be much explanation on this. Tier is just really good. Okay. Now let's move into some other things. So, Magi's Soul Stealer is, it's without a doubt one of the most broken items in the entire game. Now, it doesn't have like a mythic bonus or anything like that anymore. It's just very, very, very good. And in the current state of affairs and everything else, and with item importance, with there being less dependency on like mythics and like legendary purchasing and all this other stuff, I don't think Magi's is inherently as good as it once was, but it is still absolutely amazing, and so we are going to just have it be in S tier. Okay, then we move on to, let's move on to something that's like, it's okay, it's not absolutely, game-shattering or something like this. Let's move on to like Rylai's. I think Rylai's, for the reasons that you actually get it, is a pretty fine item. I think that a lot of the champions that do end up getting it are going to be pretty limited in nature. But when you do get the item and when you get it on the champions that you're intending to purchase it on, Rylai's is an absolutely bonkers item. Now, the item is not so broken and so bonkers that it actually warps champions and demands them to buy it and forces those champions into the meta, and so for that reason, I can't actually have it be a higher, rated item as like Z or something like that. So we move on here, and let's just pick out another random item. So the Rocket Belt is pretty terrible. I think Rocket Belt, when you compare a lot of the items that exist right now, and you compare everything else that's going on inside of the meta and what champions are good and what champions are actually viable with these item changes and stuff, I think Rocket Belt is just going to be not a very great item, right? We move on to Lichbane, and I think Lichbane is pretty much in the same exact boat. Lichbane values a lot from its components and not exactly from the item completion itself. And so for that reason, I would just say Lichbane, not super, not something that's super great to write home about. Yeah, I'm going to put Cosmic Drive here as a B tier item, or like A, like A or B. It's not something that's like particularly amazing and that you want to forcefully buy and stuff. Now the item itself is a lot of its components. It really is in between these two. I think actually I'm just gonna move everything up and I'll see if I end up moving things around a little bit later. Rabadon's Death Cap with everything else that is going on right now. I guess Rabadon's is probably also just an S tier item. Rabadon's is quite expensive, but once you get it and once it does round out your builds, you're gonna feel pretty good about it in most cases. So yeah, I don't think it feels too bad at all, especially with the buffs and easily large odds. It feels less bad as they're sitting in your inventory. So I think Rabadon's in general is a pretty good item. Haunting Guise. Now, Haunting Guise is a good item, but it's not an amazing item by itself inside of Laning Phase. So I'm just going to say that Haunting Guise is an A tier item, and it does belong on this list, even though it's like a component type thing and Verdant Barrier is not here. I do think that it is important to include it. Okay. Liandry's is definitely an S tier item. I don't think that it's Z. I think the old madness effect was 10%. This current one is just 6%. So it is missing some stuff, but still Liandry's is definitely a very, very good item, and there's definitely no doubt about that. Riftmaker, I think it's hyper specific. It's not going to be built more than Liandry's. I think in general, Riftmaker is just kind of a sad item. You're going to pair it with some items, but it's not going to be the main item that you're looking for. And even on the champions that used to primarily go for Riftmaker, now Liandry's is just ultimately going to be better, and there's going to be better items too. So I think in that regard, you know, that's how we look at that. Nashor's Tooth with the gold reduction cost to it and everything else. I think Nashor's is obviously in a pretty good spot. And, you know, we feel good about this. Zhonya's Hourglass as an item, it's a very strong item. Building into the item is where it like really sucks. I would say that this item is between A and B. It's definitely not an S tier item, primarily just because, again, it bogs down your inventory in a lot of ways. The stats on it do feel good. Once you get the active, it is a really good active, but it does bog you down, and for that reason, you know, it does kind of suck. Void Staff, I think, is still a good item. I don't think it's quite as good as Cryp Bloom. Actually, I think because Cryp Bloom is so much better in the mass majority of cases, and it's going to be a very thin difference between the two, I have no problem putting Void Staff down here at, you know, the 40%, or yeah, in B tier category. I think that that's totally fine. Rod of Ages, I think, is a misunderstood item. It is something that I do kind of want to come back to, now that you're not gated to being unable to get other mythics and whatnot. But the problem, again, is the pairings in a lot of ways, right? So I think Rod of Ages, we probably just put it in C tier category for the most part. Seraphs is a really nice item in a lot of ways. I don't think that we actually have any Z tier items for mages. I think a lot of mage items are just very strong. But yeah, I think Seraph's Embrace doesn't really need an explanation too much. Now we have Storm Surge. Storm Surge also seems really, really strong. I'm going to put Storm Surge also in the S tier category. And again, the thing about this is Storm Surge actually is Storm Surge is really good. The thing about Seraphs is that it enables different types of playstyle and whatnot. And there's all that other type of stuff. Actually, as I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about some of the other items, I'm actually going to move Rabadon's down to A. While the power of the item is really good, you have other things that you oftentimes need to complete first, and then Rabadon's comes in as an assisted item to sort of just round everything out. So I think I'm going to move Rabadon's down to A as I'm thinking about this more. Storm Surge definitely just going up in power. And then we have Malignance. And for the champions that it's good on, Malignance is just a really fucking nuts item when you end up reading it. It's just way too. Then we have Horizon Focus. This is easily one of the worst items in the entire game, but it's not totally piss useless. So I'm just going to end up having this be there. I think Shadowflame now is also a little bit weird. It's going to be a little bit more situational than some other items that end up getting picked up. So I think we'll have Shadowflame probably be like A-ish, just for like what you're getting as you're building into it. Actually, maybe not. No, probably not. Probably have Shadowflame actually just be B tier. Maybe not. No, we'll have it be A. Okay, and then we have Luden's companion, and obviously this is also going to go S because there's just so many things as well. And then in the absolute terrible tier, we have the perfect harmony of these 4 items, and I think that is mage. I do think that this is mage items. Okay, so that is mage. Okay, that is mage. Mage, after 5 hours of reading all items and such. Okay, so that's mage. All right, now let's. Ooh, shit. All right, let's move this. All right, let's move this.